Thanks for making it early today.
Yeah, let's get it done, baby.
Let's do it. Today's February 1st. It's been a fucking month already into this year. It's crazy, dude. Every year it flies
It's
by
good.
faster and faster. I know it is good. I think it's flying by faster and faster because we're getting shit done.
There's also there's this it's not sad, but there's the relativity of like every second of your life is a smaller fraction of your entire life than the previous second was. So it actually is getting faster.
It's true, dude. I've thought about that a lot over the last couple of years. Actually, you know what? This is perfect to lead into what we're going to talk about today. But I started thinking about this a couple of years ago because I always hear like, my parents or whatever say it goes by so fast. And I start thinking to myself, fuck, man, life goes by, every year goes by a lot faster now than it did when I was 10 or when I was 20 or when I was 25. So imagine when I'm 70, how fast life is going to, 1 year is going to go by. And it's a crazy thing to think about, but to be honest, it kind of leads right into what I wanted to talk about with you today, which is, um, first of all, how to pick mentors. But one of the things one of my best mentors says is, what will they say when you die about you? And do you live today like you're going to die? Meaning, do you live a life like that you're going to be proud of when you die? Or do you not even factor in your mortality on a daily basis? So we're going to talk about all this stuff, but I just kind of want to start this off by especially talking about how fast years go by talking about this specific factor, which is one of my mentors, Ed Milet, silent mentor. Never met him in my life, but watched his YouTube, listened to his podcast, attended his events. His advice has changed my life. And one of the things that he said at the last event that I was going to, he started his speech out by, I think most of you live like you're not going to die. And I thought about that for a second and I realized, like, wow, that's really true. Most of us live every single day like we have forever until we start getting close to the end and we start having regrets or whatever the case may be. But, it's a really interesting concept to factor your mortality into your daily life because it's a morbid thing to think about. But at the same time, it can be motivating for you to actually, it can be motivating and humbling in the sense of motivating for you to get the shit done that you want to get done while you're here on this earth, and humbling in the sense that, well, none of it really matters because we were born with nothing and we take nothing with us. And I think that adding that reflection to your daily thoughts is super powerful if you vision it the right way, like I just said. Do you do that at all, or have you done that, or would you consider doing that if you don't?
100%. I think about it a lot, which sounds weird that you think about death a lot, but I've actually been trying to incorporate it more and more into the daily repetition of thought. And I actually pair it with gratitude because there's a framing that I learned from a mentor of mine, silent mentor, Alex Hermosi. And the framing that he put together and was a game changer for me was if you wake up in the morning and you pretend now that you're 80 or you're near the end of your life and you're looking back at to what you're doing today like it's the good old days, you all of a sudden like your entire perception of your day changes. Like you're your 80-year-old version of, sorry, I said that wrong. You're the 80-year-old version of yourself getting to relive today like you're 30 again. And all of a sudden my entire day changes because it's like, you know what? I live my entire life. I'm old. Like this is a whole new fresh start for me to start at 30 again. So I'm like, what would my 80-year-old version of myself get to think about living today as a 30-year-old? And all of a sudden like that frame shift makes today like the most important day of my entire life. I lived my whole life. I'm almost done. And now I have a shot at being 30 again. And all of a sudden I have this sense of invigoration.
That's so true.
Yeah, there's like it's like yeah, the other big thing for me is the whole concept of like nothing really fucking matters because you're going to die. And because of that, you should, one, set yourself free from all the bullshit worries that you have, because they really, on a long enough timeline, they really don't matter. It's all made up and in your head. And so you can crush a lot of the momentary anxiety you'd feel from day to day based on that. And then the second piece with that is you kind of become God in that moment, because anything that you decide is important, and anything that you don't isn't. Because if nothing really matters, then you get to decide what matters. Like, the choice is yours, because in the scheme of the universe and your own mortality, they don't matter. And so there's something extremely empowering about deciding that you're God in your own life because you have this mortality. Everything's so finite that's like, the choice is yours.
I love that you brought up I've heard Hormozy say that before, and it goes hand in hand with, all the other guys that I listen to it talk about, and it's so true. It's like, even just think back to living at your 20-year-old self now at 30. Like, if you have, all of the knowledge and things that you have now, but your body's working better, you're recovering faster, like, a lot changes in even just 10 years. And you think about how you're going to feel when you're 80, looking back to how you are now at 30, you're so right. You would be the most appreciative person ever to be able to live in this body and get the tasks done today that you can get done today. So I think it's really important. It's interesting that I don't think we've ever talked about this. Maybe we have, I don't know, but I don't know if we've ever talked about death and, reflecting on your mortality every day, but we both have a very similar perspective on it, it sounds like, it sounds like both from listening to other mentors. And I think one of the things I want to make sure is clear about choosing your mentors, and why I wanted to talk about this today, is, a lot of people listen to advice from anybody they want to. But what I learned in the last few years is that you can only take advice from people who are in a place that you want to be in. Meaning, if you want to make $10 million, ask somebody who's made a minimum of $10 million, or better yet, $100 million. If you want to get a six-pack, don't ask somebody that's 100 pounds overweight. Ask somebody who's had a six-pack for 3 years straight. If you want to have a healthy, loving relationship, ask someone who's been in an amazing marriage for 20 years. Don't ask people for advice who don't have the things that you admire. And I think that is a super important place to kind of start with. How did you even start listening to Hormozy in the first place? How did I start listening to Ed Milet in the first place? How do we even find our mentors in the first place and make sure they're the right people for us? So I'm genuinely just curious, like, do you remember when you found Hormozy, and were you searching for something? Did you just come across it while you were, scrolling on Instagram or something? Or were you seeking something out? And did you seek someone specifically for that? Or was it kind of random?
I think it was in between what you just described. At that period of time in my life, I had made a commitment to start piping in better inputs into my brain to make sure that the things that I'm hearing are aligned with the person that I want to become. So instead of scrolling the news and just hearing about like negative shit happening that I can't control, instead replace that with people talking about business, people talking about self-improvement, people talking about meeting their potential and busting past the ceiling of where they are today. And so I had a general framework of what types of things I was trying to pipe into my brain. And I think at that point in time, he had started putting out more content. And so I think I was shuffling through different forms of content from people of, I'd say, varying levels of credibility. And once I came across him, boxes were checked in terms of what you just said, where it's somebody who is financially in a place that I'd want to be in the future. And then after spending some time listening, aligned with the identity, aligned with the goals that I had set out. And so I think it wasn't a hyper specific search process as much as I wanted to change my inputs. And then in that fell into what is, this silent mentor type of relationship, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, interesting. I same exact thing for me. I had made that decision that it's interesting, bro. When you make a decision about something, things start appearing in your life to pull you towards that decision. And same exact thing with me. I had started to feel like I wanted to make a change in my life and I wanted to start, listening to different content or reading a book. I had literally never listened to a podcast, and I came across I don't even know, I think it was on Instagram, or YouTube, podcast of Ed Milet. And I listened to it and it just resonated so deeply with me. And I think about that moment all the time today. I actually talk about it all the time because it was just that one podcast that I listened to that I randomly came across that just totally changed the way that I, like you said, input into my brain. From that day forward, literally not a day has gone by that I haven't listened to at least one podcast or read 10 pages or a combination of both or whatever it is. And it's because having those inputs constantly reframe the way that we think, like we talked about in the last episode. And how do you want to reframe the way that you think? Do you want to do it from somebody who is not in the place that you want to be, or do you want to do it from people who are in the place that you want to be, like we're talking about now? So on that note, and on talking about how you want to die, or what do you want to be remembered by when you die, or whatever I was talking about earlier, another one of my silent mentors, Jesse Itzler, is a guy who I found from Ed Milet's podcast. One of the greatest books I've ever read in my entire life, by the way, Living with a Seal. And one of his things that he talks about all the time is why live at 70%, right? And I'm bringing these things up because these are common, like the living like you're going to die and living at 70% are two super crucial things in my life that I've gotten from these silent mentors that I think are important to talk about. Well, I sought out these mentors, and these are two, and I have many more super crucial lessons that I think about every single morning when I wake up, which is what we talked about before. Are you living like you're going to die? Coupled with Jesse's law of 70%, which is, why are you living at 70%? Why are you only putting in 70% effort into everything you're doing? If that, a lot of people are putting in 20% effort, 30% effort, but coupled with the fact that you're going to die, why are you only putting in 70% effort into your life? Why aren't you putting in 100% knowing that you can reach your potential? Why do you not even seek out that potential? And that shit was hammered into me, and it made me realize, like, fuck, I'm leaving stuff on the table every single day that I don't want to leave on the table. And it's just an interesting reframing that I have every single morning now that pushes me to do better every single day. And I wanted to bring it up because, number one, it's super important to me. And number two, I'm curious of anything that you've gotten similar to that you think about every day from any of your mentors that you have.
So you hit on a couple of things there that I really liked. One, I think this concept of a silent mentor is an important one, because it comes back to this concept of repetition that we've talked about. Even a real life mentor, you're never going to have access to on a daily basis. And so it's actually a different kind of commitment to pipe in the advice and the perspective of a person that you want to be like in some way on a daily basis. I think it comes back to repetition. And there's also a certain level of commitment that it sounds like you've made that has been highly beneficial, where you listen and you take these things in and these lessons in on a consistent and a daily basis, because you need that reminder on a daily basis. That's just how the brain works if you want to reprogram yourself. And so I think that was just an important lesson that I just took away from hearing you talk about this, that this concept of the silent mentor, these are also daily commitments, just like anything else you do in terms of like waking up and showing gratitude, like also making sure you listen to the right things and keep hearing them and having these lessons beat into you is a critical thing if you want to continue on a path for your brain to change how it thinks about things. But to answer your question more specifically, this one actually connects the concept of you're going to die with living at 100%. Something I've been doing recently mostly in workouts, but as we're talking about it, I think like you can apply this to any activity that you're doing. Is I pretend that this is the last time that I'll ever get to do that activity. So if I'm like running a sprint, I'm like, yo, run this sprint like it's the last time you ever get to run a sprint. And I pretend it's the last time I'm ever going to do that lunge. It's the last time I'm ever going to like throw up that bench press. Last time I'm ever going to do the squat. And all of a sudden, my mind, like, how hard I try to get through the finish line on that, I'm at 100% because nobody wants to die knowing the last fucking thing they did was at 70%. And so just that little narrative I build for myself in that last moment is a constant reminder of, one, the consequence of you are going to die. So how do I live my entire life like I'm going to die? Well, I just start pretending that the next activity that I'm going to do is I'm going to die after it, basically. So that way I can leave everything on the court.
I love that. And it sounds, to somebody listening who's never heard people talk like this, it may sound like, well, why do you want to do that? Aren't you sad when you do that? But what you realize is that when you use that as your motivation and you push through 100%, you're not sad. You're incredibly prideful and you feel like you gave it your all and you feel more fulfilled than ever before because you're putting in more effort into your life. And to hit on what you were saying about constantly having these inputs, we live in a world today where it's incredibly easy to access all this information. Back in the day, if like our parents' age, for example, the only thing that they had was Tony Robbins cassette tapes. There was nothing else. Maybe Jim Rohn, or there was very little ways to access positive information. You got your information from a newspaper or from the 7 channels that were on the TV or whatever it is. Now, in today's world, there's obviously a lot more distractions. You can get stuck in the scroll and you can go watch a bunch of, all sorts of crazy shit. But on the positive side of that, there are endless silent mentors that you can adopt and start listening to their content every single day and start applying it to your life every single day for free. You don't have to buy anything. You could literally go on YouTube or a podcast or read a book and learn from a mentor every single day without paying them a single dollar or ever even having to talk to them. And we are both examples of that. So it's super important, I think, to hammer that in. Do you look for new mentors? Do you actively seek out new mentors? Like when you are doing something new in life, like for example, right now you're transitioning from, your one business that you sold to a new business. This may be a moment in your life where a mentor would be helpful, whether you have one or not. If you don't have one, have you thought about it or curious on that?
So this is interesting because it's a very specific thing that I'm doing. And so I have, and I've talked to 3 different people that I've identified that could be potential mentors. 2 of them are in person, real life. And one is a person who doesn't put out a ton of content, but I've been able to find them on podcasts. And so I've been going and working on listening anything that I can find from them. He wrote a book and he's been on like a couple of podcasts. So I read his book. And let me contextualize this a little bit. I'm running a consulting business now. And this guy, it's a boutique consulting business. And this guy took a boutique consulting business to 30 million a year, like 15 million in earnings. And I think sold it for like $150 million. So if anyone knows how to do what I'm doing extremely well, it's this guy. And so to answer your questions, yes, I've been absorbing as much as I can from him specifically. When you get into like these niche things that are very specific, it definitely gets a little more challenging to find the same consistent stream of input and contents. But I would say there's a lot of low-hanging fruit in terms of the frameworks of how to think about this business specifically that I've been able to take from him. And then to supplement that, I've reached out to people that are in the industry that I'm working in specifically that I know have been successful, maybe not to his degree, but like, let's say a $50 million sale instead of a $150 million sale. And I've been able to get in touch with them and do 30 or 60 minute meetups to try and learn as much as possible. But those in real life relationships are definitely a lot more investment has to go into cultivating those. And so I'm a little more selective on where I'll go from here in terms of building those relationships.
So it's interesting because I'm happy you brought that up, because in-person mentorship is something that I've started over the last probably 2 years after I started learning from all the silent mentors and I improved my life. I got in a little bit better shape. I started making more money. I started seeking out in-person mentorship, for not that I got rid of any of my silent mentors, but what I learned is that when you seek in-person mentorship, number one, you're getting all the same things that you're getting from, the silent mentorship. You're getting the advice. It's even more specific because you can talk to them. But also what's even better is that you cultivate a relationship with them and get introduced to other people who are very like-minded to you, who also have that person as a mentor, or who that mentor is friends with, or who that mentor has as their mentors. And that's something that I've found from joining masterminds and joining a coaching. Like, for example, joining a mastermind with mentors on how to build my my marketing business. I have met so many people. My business has literally doubled since joining this thing from relationships we've made inside of this mentorship mastermind. Same thing with fitness. I hired a fitness coach a few months ago to help me get a six-pack and get in shape. And I've already met amazing people who also have this guy as a coach from the community. And it's been a great way to just build a network of like-minded people who you're going to grow with, who you're going to relate to, and who really just share the same common goals. And there's this energy when you start surrounding yourself with these type of people that just inspire you every single day to continue to act on your goals and not give up, basically. And I think that's a super powerful part of finding mentors too in real life, is connecting with their networks, which again, in today's world is incredibly easy. There are a lot of people out there that have these in-person groups. And if you have the ability to join one, I talk to Brad about this all the time. If you have the ability to join one, I think it's very powerful to do so if you are joining the right one, because it can fast track your mindset, your career, your health, and you can like they always say, you can learn from the mistakes that other people have made. When you're in an environment like that, you really do learn from the mistakes other people have made versus having to make them all yourself. And not only that, but you can obviously fast track a lot with the right relationships. So that's another super important part of mentorship that I've benefited from greatly over the last couple of years. Have you ever seen that?
Isn't there there's an energy when you get in the room with the right people that think in a way that you want to be thinking, that all of a sudden you're more aligned with what you want to do? I think it's in more specific instances that I've identified and found like-minded people versus being part of a bigger group. And honestly, after having engaged with you over the last couple of months, it's now a top priority for me in 2023 to do this at a more massive scale. And so we'll put a pin in, but I will keep you posted on my progress against doing this, because this is now a priority for me, because I've seen it at the local level. I mean, even the easiest example for this audience is me engaging with you. Every time we talk and we clearly have a same set of goals at the highest level, it then changes my thinking for the entire rest of the day after having a conversation with this. So imagine doing that for a whole weekend, being surrounded by hundreds of people who are all on the same page. And on top of that, they likely have something to teach you, because if you're doing it right, you're with a group of people that are 5-10 years ahead of where you actually want to be. So I'm basically just selling myself on the idea right now. But yeah, I think if you juxtapose the two, let's call these are all tools in a toolkit to improve your mindset. One of them is silent mentors, and that's this daily repetition, the opportunity to curate exactly from people who from a wide spread of people, exactly what you want to pipe into your brain. You have the opportunity to do, because like you said, there's more out there now for free than there's ever been. And because people are in such a competition for attention, the quality of that content is better than probably books were, 50 years ago, just because it's so competitive and people will do a lot to get your attention. They will give a lot away for free that is high value. And then on the flip side, the level of engagement and the impact it has on the things you can, like, probably the speed at which you can learn things and just the energy of being with people in a room that are all thinking like you and hopefully better than you will pull you forward into your identity, will pull you forward into the knowledge that you need to either be success in health, wealth, relationships, whatever it is. I think they're both two separate tools in a toolkit that end up being synergistic if you do it right.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the combination of all those things is really important. Like, I like to mix up the different type of this is a great example. I like to mix up the different types of things I attend or I listen to. Like, I'll go to my mastermind, which is, an intimate group of 50 to 60 people, and it's super high level entrepreneurs. That's where I learn a lot about business and building my career and building relationships. And then I'll go to the Arete Syndicate event, which is 3,000 people that are just all different types of businesses, all different types of lifestyles, but they're just there for personal development. They're just there to become the best versions of themselves. And then I'll go and, attend my fitness coaches events, and that's all people who are trying to get healthy and trying to get in shape and live their best life fitness wise. And it's one of the it's probably one of the best things that I've done over the last couple of years is just diversify myself among these different groups of people, because like you said, when I'm around these groups of people every single time, I feed off of their energy. And just like I feed off of your energy and I feel better every single day after we get off one of these calls, being in those different environments has allowed me to feed off of their energy in all those different areas. So in my business, in my personal development, in my fitness. And I have made a goal to do this every single year going forward, is attend some sort of quarterly event, because to be honest, I've kind of been on track doing it almost monthly at this point. And I'm not an event junkie or anything like that, because there's a lot of people who are event junkies who just go from event to event to event and never do anything. The reason I go to these events is because I have massive action every single time I leave one of these events. And it's just, I've found a routine that keeps a healthy motivation, where I'm not being an event junkie going from event to event and never doing anything. I'm using them as a tool to keep my fire lit at all times, so that it makes it easier for me to operate at my full potential at all times, because there's shortcuts that you can give yourself to operate at your full potential. You can set yourself up for success. There's going to be things that are hard, but it doesn't mean you can't try to make it as easy as possible for yourself along the way. And that's one of the reasons why having mentors helps. It's a way to make it easier for you along the way. Imagine trying to figure out all this shit by yourself when you could go on YouTube and listen to somebody talk to you about nutrition and fitness, or go on YouTube and listen to somebody talk to you about mindset and pulling yourself out of a horrible situation when you've lost everything, and you go and listen to somebody who's lost everything 3 separate times and now they're worth $1 billion, and they tell you about all 3 of those separate times how they pulled themselves out. You don't think you could learn something from that versus trying all these different things on your own? So I know I just went off on kind of a tangent there, but it's just been such a powerful thing in my life that I can't talk about enough. So I'm very excited to get you in person with me, by the way, which I'm going to keep hammering you about all year.
I'm fucking sold, dude. After that tangent, I think everything you said was extremely powerful, and I think I really like the connection you made to massive action, because at the end of the day, that's the output from all of anything that we're doing around mindset. Like, part of it, like, sure, it's good to feel good, but what's important is that out of all of this, that you are doing what you said you want to do. You're doing what you want to be doing in your mind, but can't bring yourself to do. You're taking massive action. And so if the output of you going to these events is massive action, then I can't think of any more one-to-one cause and effect that you would want. And so that sounds very high leverage to me.
Yeah, I agree. All right, man, this has been great. Curious, anything else that you wanted to talk about when it comes to finding a mentor? I think to conclude, we've talked about having silent mentors, which is very easy to do. Anybody can go get a silent mentor right now, a YouTube, podcast, coaching group, book, anything like that. We talked about in-person mentorship, whether it be one-on-one with a mentor in a group setting to network and build relationships. What else? I think those are the primary two. What else did we talk about?
I think those are the big ones, but I think conceptually, like the framework here, it's almost like mentor stacking. Like take the identity you want and then build, like use that as the foundation for going and one, finding groups of silent mentors that you can engage with daily. And then two, layer on top of that in person, whether it's via masterminds, whether it's via coaching, as you're talking about, the different tools that you just described, and layer that on top. If you want the full impact of what, let's call it the mentorship pillar of mindset is for you, the framework is build the identity, find the silent mentors, and then find the in real life to layer on top of that. And if you can do those things, you're going to have this full package of interactions in your life, both one way and two way, that are going to support the mindset that you're trying to cultivate.
I love that. I agree. And one more thing I want to add is don't sleep on the silent mentorship. Like that's what changed my life. And so many people wait until they could find a mentor they can talk to and tell them their specific problem and tell them why their life is in the way it is and how to help. But do not sleep on silent mentors, because all the messages that you need to hear are already out there and they're free. You just need to be willing to accept them and listen to them and take action on them, regardless of how you think it's going to turn out. You have to be willing to listen to what your silent mentor is saying and take action on it without having to talk to them one-on-one or I've seen so many people give themselves so many excuses. But at the end of the day, your silent mentor exists, and all of the information that you need is online, 100% free. You have absolutely no excuse. You could literally type in a search on YouTube right now. Like I think I literally Googled how to not be depressed. I swear to God, I think that's what I Googled and came across that podcast. So it's like you can literally get anything that you want right now. It's just a matter of making the decision that you want to improve, that you want to do X, Y, or Z, and then acting upon that decision. So that's what I'll leave you with.
That's fucking crazy. Yeah, you had a specific question and then you got a specific answer. You never even had to meet the guy. I think that's wild.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy. I forgot about that. I think I literally typed into Google how to not be depressed, and this podcast came up with.
Big fucking question.
Yeah, no, it is a big question. It's like, who would type that into Google either? But I mean, listen, clearly it worked. So yeah, man. All right, this is cool. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. Make sure you do the duties, subscribe, leave a comment, leave us a 5-star review, tell us we're amazing. We really appreciate it. Or critique us and tell us we're terrible. We appreciate that too. And we'll see you in the next one. Take care.
Take care.